All right, guys. Hey, how's it going? It's Seth Struxma here, and we're back with another episode of What's the Deal? Today, we're going to be talking with a good friend of mine about basically transitioning from being an agent and transitioning over into kind of the development world. And, we're going to be hitting on kind of how he got into this world out of still being an agent, but actually migrating into this development side of things. Some tips, tricks, talking about some deals that he's done, and just keeping it fun and interesting like always. So what's the deal with all those old school real estate agents teaching outdated marketing techniques and living in the past? This show is about fresh ideas in real estate, diving deep into marketing, design, home renovations, and business development. But we also talk about lifestyle, health, travel, and just living an incredible life. Because the fastest way to financial freedom and fun is through real estate. It's time to build up your real estate business, serve way more clients, and have a blast doing it. Welcome, Matt Davies, to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
I'm already...
Now that I've sufficiently warmed you up with my stories of Grand Theft Auto.
And sweating and excited all at the same time. So thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
This will be fun. It's a interesting and curious topic for me, not just about kind of this process that you've been doing, but I'm sure a lot of people are interested in kind of being an agent, and curiosity leads to maybe transitioning out of that and being a developer or some sort of blend. So tell us kind of how this all happened, maybe your whole story, because I know a little bit of your story, but tell us kind of your origin story and how this has all happened for you.
Sure. Whenever I hear that question, I wish I had some bogus story to just go into 30 seconds of before I always think, I should have prepared that. So I guess I'll have to tell you the truth. But so I really became a realtor because I wanted to get into more investment and development stuff. And I think a realtor is a great place to start, and it's a great place to stay, but it's a low barrier to entry place to begin, right? Cut your teeth in being in real estate. And so I started selling houses in 2015. And it wasn't until 2018 that I got into development buying stuff for myself. And an old broker told me one time, buy the best, sell the rest is the broker's creed. So a lot of guys that have been in the business for a long time will see a deal and take it for themselves. And it's kind of one of the advantages of being in real estate brokerage, right? Developing an intuition about what you see and seeing other people have their experiences, and just generally being a fly on the wall for a bunch of different conversations. So you develop this intuition pretty quick about what's a good deal and what isn't a good deal. So I started with Cantor Brokerage, and the reason I did that was because they were doing developments and doing flips. So they kind of taught me how to underwrite stuff and listening to what went well, what didn't go well, kind of synthesized, a foundation pretty quickly.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you started at Cantor. They're with Compass now too, but
no, they are, and Andrew's a great guy. But it was I was either going to go to Willis Allen or I was going to go to Compass. Not Compass, to Cantor. And the thing that I liked about Cantor was they're younger people. It's still like a young professional group that does multiple different things. So I was more interested in having a rounded start in the business than I'm going to sell luxury real estate in La Jolla, which I never actually really. I did a little bit, but I never intentionally went after that niche, because it's good sized pie that there's a million people going after.
Yeah, everyone's going after it. Yeah. Well, I know you're very modest. You're very humble, because we've had lunch a couple times. We got together, and you're not just like this low profile realtor, man. You've done quite a few transactions in a year. You're a hardworking guy, and you've taken yourself the North Park Whisperer.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed.
Starting to stick.
Okay, so 2018, you kind of figured out, I'm going to start buying stuff for myself. But you went into this actually wanting to get out of it. It wasn't like, I'm going to be a realtor. Yeah, it was a means to an end. Yeah, it was like, totally. Oh, cool, I'm going to be in this forever, and it's going to be a lifelong career. That's actually kind of how I got into it as well. I started flipping houses in the beginning, became an agent, and I was like, okay, cool, this is a great means to an end, but I actually love doing what I do. But, we're kind of in the same boat. I definitely want to have it being an agent is a means to an end, but there's still those people that you still love working with and that you'll always have forever.
Yeah.
But at what point did you start kind of like getting into, well, what was your first deal?
Yeah. So, I mean, brokerage is really fun. I really still do like doing transactions, kind of like you. It's I love getting calls from people that are like, how would you like to have, 6 new listings, more listings a month, or blah, 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 blah. And I tell them, actually, no. Like, I want to have clients that are really only referred by other clients that are, a friend of a friend, or we have a personal connection, because I find with those kinds of experiences, it's going to be more rewarding. It's not so transactional, and you really go to bat for people when there's like a personal connection. And San Diego is such like a, 2 degrees of separation kind of place.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, over time, as I like did more transactions and saved more money and did this, it's like I kind of shifted to this. I only want to work with people that I kind of have a rule. Work with people that I would have over to my house, have dinner with them, and let them hold my baby.
Dude, I love it. Hold my baby.
No, serious.
So that's so funny that you made a rule, because I made a rule that if I can't go to a music festival or go party with you, I don't want to work with you.
Totally.
And
yes.
And that has paid off and has been true every single time. I've had a client, I'm like, I would not go to a music festival with you, and I would not want to go party with you.
Yeah.
Why am I working with you? And then it goes on like 6 months later, you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Why did I even hang out with these? Why did I take this on? Like
it's the 80-20 rule, totally. And I just feel like life's too short to have any experience less than ideal, right? We're going to experience bad things in life because it comes up. But when it comes to business, it's like positive experiences kind of like grow, and so do negative ones. So if you could avoid the negative ones, you avoid the negative experience growth.
Ding, ding, ding. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we'll tap into mindset for a second.
Yeah.
Like, positivity grows positivity. And if you're around positive clients and doing great things that you actually enjoy, you're going to flourish. You're going to do really well. But again, if you're around people that are bringing you down or you don't vibe with, it's going to bring you down as well. And it's just kind of like, every agent should have that rule then. Like, if you can't go do that, you're going to...
everybody begins with this, like, I have to take everything that comes at me. I have to be a yes man. I have to say yes. Whatever it is, I'll do whatever it takes, right? And I feel like you have to tap into that mentality to overcome adversity in all areas of life. But there's also a period where you have to really be clear with your boundaries and what you're looking for, and also kind of focus on attracting that. And if it's not that, say, thank you for the opportunity, but I think someone else could better serve you. So I've never bought a lead. I've never really tapped into that world. And most of my business has been more business to business style. And so it's helped me grow in order to get into the investment stuff. And then I can still maintain a business like that while wearing a couple different hats.
You can pick. You're like, you know what? I'm over here doing this project. I'm not going to like weigh my day down because I have this nagging client. I'm just going to go keep doing what I'm doing and be happy.
And like, I'm sure I know you adopt this kind of mentality too. We go to bat for our clients, and we'll do whatever it takes for our clients. So when the relationship is reciprocal, you'll do whatever it takes, right? So it's kind of puts you in the best light.
And I said this today. I just posted something. I love working with my friends. Everyone's like, "Oh, don't work with your friends." I'm like, no, I love it. Like, it's the best, because you're right. You go to bat for them. You're like, oh, hell no, I'm going to be at this house, like, and I'll tell the friends, we can't even have a dinner party here. What are we going to do here? This is so small, or whatever, like, it's just
you
like
can be truthful with them.
Yeah, you can be really truthful with them, because you know who they are. And I just love working with friends. So even friends of friends is perfect.
Sorry to sidestep your question.
No. So back to your first deal. Let's hear about that.
Okay, so I was prospecting a lot. So when I started Cantor Brokerage, I actually started under Luke Middleton. I'm sure you know Luke.
I know Luke.
So Luke's my real estate daddy. And still a good friend, great guy. And, he's been in the flip world for a long time, so kind of learning some stuff from him. And he was living in North Park at the time, and he was like, dude, you should focus on North Park. And I was like, I kind of lived in South Park for a minute at the time. Well, not previously. So I kind of knew it. I didn't really know it super well. And it made sense to me. And I started to target it because there's apartments and there's condos and there's little houses on small lots and big houses on small lots and small houses on big lots and apartment buildings and retail. And there's just it's like a little microcosm of everything that exists.
Yeah.
And it's walkable and it's been on the upward swing trend for a long time. So Luke's kind of the reason I chose North Park. And then I started really focusing on finding these urban infill development deals because it was more formulaic for me to say, if I can find a lot, right, that's flat and alley access and, these certain parameters, I could pretty much deliver an offer that's going to be better than what somebody be paying for the existing structures because we're buying it for development purposes. And it's kind of a win-win, right?
Yeah.
I can bring it to someone and say, you'd kind of be stupid not to buy this, right? Like, look what you could do here. So I was doing a deep dive on finding all these lots and really just like zooming out on Google Maps and identifying them and building them into a spreadsheet like manually. I'm not a systems guy. I'm not like a highly leveraged technology guy at all.
Okay.
But I am a find my targets and then, interpret the data. So I had my assistant at the time looking up how much debt was on it, how much equity was in it, how much, how long they've owned it. It was owned by a trust. And once you put a bunch of these little data points, you can sometimes a little thing will stick out, right?
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of these things in there and I was calling them for my clients, right? To find I've got buyers for this and now I need to go find the product that's going to, that they're going to buy. And at the time I was buying these 7,000 square foot lots or selling them rather for 1.3 million, right? So I kind of knew what we could pay and if we can get it for less, that's great. If it was in disrepair, whatever, we can deal with it. And I also knew we couldn't buy an apartment building because they'd want too much money. So I was searching for 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit kind of things because I knew I could make them an offer they couldn't refuse if they had the motivation to sell.
Yep.
So I kind of just started calling down the list and there was one where I was like, oh, this thing just sold for $629,000. And meanwhile, I've been buying these things. I mean, I've been brokering these for 1.3 million. And I was enjoying hey, we bought this one. And then I talked to the neighbors and say a lot of things intentionally about, look, a developer bought it. They're going to be building something. It's not going to be a while until we do it, but we do want to extend the offer to you. If you wanted to, sell your house to us, we'd be interested in making an offer on it. This is what we paid for this one. So just bringing the people together, stringing the lots together. So it was a whole scheme and I still like doing it. I enjoy it.
Scheme.
Well, it's a whole, there's nobody that's the ringleader in doing this. Sometimes these things organically come together, but if you can find a way to add value to everybody involved, riches in the niches.
Yep.
So I saw this one for $629,000. It sold to some, hedge fund in, real estate fund in Los Angeles. And I was like, well, let me call him, right? So I call him and I'm like, hey, can I talk to your acquisitions manager? Because what is this? How'd you get the deal? What's it, So it was foreclosed upon. It sold at auction, and they paid $629,000 for it. So they're going to be selling it because they're in the business of selling these things. I said, well, how much would you sell it to me for? And they're like, let me look at my numbers, Pregnant pause goes by. He's like, I'll sell it to you $750 now or $850 after I renovate it. And I go, I'll buy it now. And I had never bought any. Well, I bought my house 4 months earlier, which is funny because I didn't, I had a little bit of money to fix up my house. And I was like, I don't have any money, but I'm going to get this thing for $750. And I know, and I'm buying it from a real estate fund, a sophisticated buyer. So it's totally they said they'll sell it to me right now, $750. This is business to business. So I'm like, I'll buy it. I didn't have any plan to do it or anything like that. So I get it under contract and I start calling hard money lenders and they're like, how much money are you going to put down? I'm like, none. And they're like, and why is that? And I'm like, because it's worth 1.3 as it sits.
Yeah.
Right. So, I ended up getting 100% financing on it, which was awesome. Well, I mean, it's that good of a deal, right?
It is that good of a deal.
You talk about, in real estate podcasts, like we're doing it right now, but you hear about if you have a really good deal, the money's not a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
So I got 100% financing, which was rad, and I actually got 105% financing. I fixed it up a little bit with the money that I had, and it had 2 units on it. And then I didn't even know it until I closed on it because there was a guy that lived in there, and he was being evicted, and it was a long story. But I got it. It was kind of, it was in shambles. It was a mess. And the garage was like a little, ADU.
Oh my gosh.
Which ended up being a future code enforcement violation for me. We were talking about the other day.
That's fun.
Fun.
Ongoing right now.
Yeah. But I've since wrapped it up. But I set it up as an Airbnb, and I had my first, I bought it I remember I bought it 3/27/2019. And I had it like ready for summer, basically.
Nice.
And pretty quick, it was making, like $10,000-$12,000 a month or something on Airbnb. And I'm like, okay, cool. This gives me more flexibility. I'm going to make more money. And, it was like all the stars aligned for me on this thing.
Yeah.
So one thing, and like I saw your notes, like I think some people rush into their first deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a really important thing is to make sure your first one is a good one, so that you have a good experience. And you can screw up.
Well, let's talk about that, because I mean it's very easy. And thanks for sharing. That's a killer deal. So wait, just to recap. So you bought it for $750.
Yeah.
You put how much into it?
I put like $170 into it.
Okay. So we're at like 900,000, maybe 925. And it was worth 1.3. No, probably more than that. After
Well, it was worth 1.3, but now it's cash flowing, and I refinanced it from a hard money loan. I got 105%, and I just refinanced that existing note, so I had into like a bank loan, right?
Yeah.
So I went from a 10% hard money loan to like a 5.125% whatever loan, and now I'm at like a 3.625%.
Oh, just
UWM 30-year
just
loan.
Keep it. It's good.
Yeah,
like I'm good.
It's hard to like go with that stuff.
Yeah, that is. So. Yeah, I mean, just back to the kind of like first investor thing. It is so easy to get emotionally charged because you're like, oh my God, it's a deal. And it's like you're going after it and you get so excited, you get so invested, and then you get screwed. I mean, it's so people don't think about the little things like how much are my holding costs? What happens if I go over budget? What happens if it doesn't sell for the price? Like people just look at the basics like, what's the purchase price? What's it worth? How much am I putting in? It's like, you're not thinking about the variables. And so...
Yeah, I messed up like literally everything you could probably mess up on that, right? It took longer. I think I doubled the budget. I think I wanted to spend like 90 grand and I spent twice. I hired some guys that were, it's like low quality. I look at the tile work in there and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I went emotional on it. I overdid it. It's all Via de Guadalupe style.
Yeah. But I mean, but that is a good tip. It's like, hey, this is not, unless you're going to move into it.
Yeah.
But like, even then, don't go like blowing the budget. Don't go like getting emotional.
I think you and I both know about blowing the budget.
Yep. I definitely do.
But I think that speaks to your like personality and dedication to doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's not about like, oh, I don't have control of this. It's over like I encountered something behind the walls that I was unaware of.
Yeah.
And then I properly addressed it at the time rather than, covered up.
Just covering it up and then you get in trouble later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It means we're good people.
I think so too.
Like we just can't you have cast iron that's cracked. Okay, well we'll put some drywall over that, and you can find it later. Yeah. Whatever, but there's people out there that do that. So
I just can't. I mean, we were talking about that at lunch. Like I can't do a carpet and paint like remodel.
Yes.
I just can't do it. I want to like go in there and that's kind of where the business and the artistry of it intersect, which for better or for worse, is just the way that I do it.
Same. I'm doing a deal right now up in Mira Mesa, and it is that. It's just carpet and paint, and I'm just like, this is driving me crazy.
It doesn't feel good. It's almost like if I'm gonna make money on this, which the goal is to make money, right? I want to substantially change what's here and substantially add value to the next person, because I do have the best intentions of mind that I'm providing a service and taking on all this brain damage, managing construction for the end consumer so that they can experience a nice house in a nice neighborhood.
Exactly. But yeah, it's tough. So let's kind of go deeper into this whole developer now side of things. So you did the first deal, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of like ADU deals. Like, tell us the process. What does it take to get into it? What do you run us through that?
Sure. So when I bought that one, my plan was to buy one a year to keep. And I've done that kind of every year. And going back to our previous conversation, like real estate brokerage is great, like 30, 60, 90-day money. And then flipping is great, like, 90 to 180-day money. And then holding long-term is great, long-term money, right? So if you can live off of, your quick money and then save your medium money for your long-term money, hopefully your long-term money eventually becomes your quick money in by way of cash flow. That's kind of like my mentality in it. But everything that I've targeted was in North Park in kind of like a 20-block radius. And I was looking for existing 2 to 4 units where I can add an additional 2 to 4 units or add something else. So I'd have like the first value add would be to fix existing and get it cash flowing as soon as possible. And then the second stage would be to add a unit or 2 or 3 or 4. So it's a little bit more laborious in, you got to revisit, go back to a property and redo it because it takes so long to get permits at the city of San Diego. But, the year after I bought, that first one I told you about, I bought like a 3-plex, and I did a garage ADU conversion when that, like, eventually. I bought another 3-plex, and I'm building 3 units behind it. I bought a 6-plex last year, and then I bought another 4-plex. So they all have this element of they're on a flat lot with alley access in North Park with a walk score of greater than 90, and they're bungalows, or I can add a couple units, and some of it's ground up, some of it's garage conversions. Sometimes I'm reworking the floor plan, adding a bathroom.
Are these like on the market? Like, how do you find these deals that you're buying?
They all come from different places. So like that first one came from just picking up the phone and calling.
Yeah.
And obviously people think that you could just call and then go get some discount real estate. That was one call of thousands probably.
Yeah.
And then I got another one from a commercial broker, which is like pseudo not on the market, right? It wasn't on the MLS. I got my 6-plex not on the MLS. I got I've bought several deals off wholesalers. I don't have a problem with that because, if they're adding value and doing a service as well, and I can fill my pipeline and and just put something into the mix. So none of my stuff is actually I bought on market. I bought on market before a couple times.
Yeah.
But I have to flip stuff in order to hold stuff, right? I take my like short-term capital gains from flipping into long-term holds, and that's my forced savings appreciation account. It's kind
Makes
of
sense.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, like, if anyone's listening, it's like, okay, you had a good formula. It was like your short-term capital commissions goes into flipping, let's say.
Yep.
That's kind of a midterm payday, which that then goes towards your long-term hold.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Because that makes that's what I kind of preach on our team. It's like everyone who's making money, go after it and buy a house. Just like go do it, because a lot of the guys on the team want to kind of do what you and I are doing.
Yeah.
And so the first step is you got to buy something first. You have to go out there and do that. So
the first 100K is like the hardest. I saw some Instagram reel and people are talking about that. It's always hard to get the motion going, and this is true for real estate or development or flipping. Like the comparison I've heard is it's like when you're in an airplane on the tarmac, it takes an incredible amount of energy to get the wheels rolling, to get the engine started, everybody's in their seats, and then it's like it takes all this speed, and then you're taking lift off, and you're just shoveling coal into the fire to you're burning jet fuel at high rates, right?
Yeah.
And then you eventually get up to 30,000 feet, and then you're at cruising altitude, right? And it doesn't take as much jet fuel to maintain cruising altitude. So yes, like someone on your team that's newer that doesn't have the relationships that you or I have is going to have a harder time creating those relationships, finding the deals, but that's part of cutting your teeth and doing it. I mean, I was not someone that just got into it and was doing really well right ahead. It's been years of compound efforts that have resulted in this. And one of my catchphrases that I've said before is, in order to be a passive income earner, you have to be a massive income earner.
I've heard you say this before, actually. Like, that is so true. That's so true. It's, it's funny because there's so many people that are out there like, oh, passive income, cash flow. And they're not out there grinding, making the active income that needs to be made to be a passive income person.
Yeah,
So,
and I don't even think I'm sure you kind of feel this way too, but the passive income that comes from, stabilizing a property and getting some cash flow really should just be like escrowed for your future repairs and improving the property. Yeah, and it's not like I made $400 or well, I'm talking about out of state investor people, right? Which I also don't do, but I was thinking about it today when I was just reflecting, kind of preparing for this, not preparing for it, but just looking at your questions. Really, like, free and clear real estate is the only real estate that really cash flows, that has real stability, because I have a vacancy. I got to go like plug a hole. I have, a hair and a clogged drain. I got to go unclog the thing. And I have to, the property needs to produce enough in order for me to pay the taxes, insurance, upkeep it, have nice landscaping in order and take care of all these incidental things in order for me to one day get to this time where maybe it's free and clear and I can, live off of that as like an annuity, and it makes a monthly income. But it's a
tough thing to sell though, because it's like, you're 100% right, because every income property I own or owned, I've never touched the money. It just sits there. And you're like, oh, that's a nice amount of money. But then, you have to go do some big repair, and it's just like, you can't live off that. You can't pull or draw from that. Unless it's making, this really high income that you're like, wow, this really makes sense now. I don't need, it's making $15,000 a month. And it's like, okay, cool, I can do that. But do you pull from any of the income at all, like, to live off of?
The way I think of how my like global debt service versus like my global income from rental properties is, it allows me to, get a hard money loan and do a flip, and then like my cash flow gets eaten by that, but interest is deductible. So it kind of gives me wings to expand and grow. I really try to live off of my like earned income from, brokerage and flips, not from my long-term income. And I also at the same time don't want to pay off any of my 3-point-something% loans right now, because that's really good, cheap money that everybody getting into this, if you don't have any of those, you kind of miss the boat, and it sucks, because I don't know if we'll see that again in our lifetime in the near future. I just don't think we will, but there's always a way, I mean, we buy these things from people. I mean, I know I get some of I was just having breakfast with a mom and pop landlord that I've bought something before, and he wants to sell some more stuff just because I made it easy for him the last time. And those people just take care of their stuff, and, they've lived off of it, or, they get to a point where they eventually cut corners. And for them, it was a big feat, right? To buy it in $1972 and do what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And I do believe that inflation is going to grow over time, and the first 10 years holding on to something is probably the hardest.
Yep.
And it is such an, like, there's nothing really passive about passive income in real estate. If you want to like make more money, you have to self-perform more activities, i.e., do the brokerage disposition yourself, find the deal yourself, manage the construction yourself, manage the property yourself. I manage my own properties myself right now.
I was going to ask, you manage your own properties and you manage your projects, it looks like, too, right? Are you the like GC for the projects, more or less?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've had good experiences. I've had bad experiences with GCs. I probably work with, I have one in mind that I'll work with in the future, but it's a lot of work, and that's why I buy everything in the same place. I have a little efficiency to be, I got an issue over here, and I got a guy that can do plumbing to go fix it, like working on another job nearby.
Yeah.
And the GCs, it's a volatile business, and they have to be business people, and there's not an abundance of great ones. I don't want to talk down on the whole thing, but to me, having a GC is like more liability and exposure, and there's somebody else that is, moderating the money that goes directly to the people that go to work.
Yeah.
So I right now am cutting out GCs because, I hire a licensed plumber and pay him to plumb.
Yeah.
And that's one piece of, like 10 different trades that are coming in. There's metal fabrication, and drywall, and plaster, and electricians, and framers, and roofers, and foundation guys, and drainage guys and soil guys and bobcat guys and demo guys. So, I like to be in the mix of that and running logistics of it because nobody cares about it as much as you do.
Exactly.
But I think that's a stage I'm in. I'm eventually going to grow out of.
Yeah.
Because I do acknowledge the ways that it's slowed me down, but also the ways that it's.
But you're learning too. I mean, like
Right.
every project is a learning experience, and so you're learning something new, so that if a GC does come in, they don't make those mistakes. Because you know as well, like,
Right.
oh, you've never done this before. Well, I have actually, and you need to do this, this, and this, and then.
Yeah, and to be able to call it, like, what's a stick, what's a snake, like. If you just, on your first flip, you're like, you just don't, I mean, you have like a construction background, so like, more inherently. I don't have that background, so I had to learn, and I paid handsome. It's way more than my college costs.
Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah. So true.
Like,
so true.
Once a year I pay that.
Yeah.
I feel like, and so those are valuable learning lessons that I'm learning, and it's part of my process for growth.
Yeah.
One of the things that to steer your conversation, things to avoid in this process, I see a lot of people that want to jump right in and do like, I'm going to do some ADUs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, have you even carpet and painted a house before?
Exactly.
Like, who would you call? And if you're going to call just all the retail people, like, your deal is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been a big proponent of being where you are and being proud of where you are. And when you are open about exactly where you are and you're not a pretender, I hate to like group all these syndicators as pretenders, but I think people make different decisions with their money versus other people's money. And when they represent that they have more experience than they do, and then they go assemble money from people, and then they make decisions without their money, they don't have the experience, things kind of go awry. And I think that's because leverage amplifies your judgment. And if you don't have the stamps on your passport to have good judgment, then, like, I would never steal a car in Mexico or something like that because I have the stamps on my passport to know not to do that.
Yep.
So I try to tell people, take the stairs, not the elevator, and be humble about where you are, but also be proud about what you've done.
Yeah. Nothing in real estate is overnight. So I think that's what I always tell people is like, hey, just like ride the wave, like it is not like you need to be from A to Z in a year, just like, it's okay. Like you said, just be proud where you are. It's all good. You don't need to rush it. And even when you do get into real estate, like investments, that still takes 6 to 9 months sometimes to see a dollar from it. So
it's like, not a get rich quick.
No, it's definitely not a get rich quick. And people have to realize that, but people think it is. So,
well, I think there's mystique in the numbers behind it, right? And there's like the stock market has returned, I don't know, like 10% annually over, an aggregate of maybe 20 years. Or so. I'm just making that up. I don't know. But there's some stat like that. It's roughly like that. So if you look at different asset classes, they're all kind of similar, right? So it does take earned income to invest in order to get in these vehicles of investment, which is, an investment property that has debt, which is, you might think that's an asset, but it's a liability because it has debt and it has humans in it that could sue you. Like, you have to treat it. You can't go, oh yeah, I'm a landlord, man. I'm a housing provider. Like, I love how like most of the car forms are housing provider, not landlord, but there's still a couple that say landlord.
Yeah. A landlord, just a land baron. Actually,
I got a new LLC idea, actually. Landlord Daddy, Daddy Landlord. That's what it is.
I feel like Daddy is the carrying
Daddy Landlord,
carrying or real estate daddy too.
Daddy Landlord LLC. I'm gonna go make it today.
I like that. So where are you kind of seeing? I mean, first of all, I'm curious just where you think the ADU world is going, because I mean, at a certain point, do you feel like it's just going to cap out? Like every lot can't have ADUs on it. Every I don't know. Like personally, I'm just like, when is this going to kind of cap out?
Yeah, it's ruffling a lot of feathers, and I think that's good in a way. But San Diego in general kind of has this, I mean, I would say track record of too little, too late when it comes to housing policy and just the way they run development services department, like the whole complete communities, which is I mean, in a sentence, do whatever you want on a lot if it's in complete communities.
Yep.
In terms of residential development. I think there's a lot of people in opposition to it, and I don't disagree with them. There's things that I have my own parameters. It's not, I believe strongly that we all need to take this approach of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to build, I don't want to say sustainable because that's not the right word. You have to build good housing, right? You have to build places people want to live, and figure out how to build them for a price that is sustainable for you financially so that you can offer them for rent at prices that people will pay and stay. That's like the whole cake that needs to be baked.
So this is part of the analysis part. Like, yeah, I think a lot of these investors, like you said, lack of a better word, just do whatever they want. And then I'm over here thinking, okay, this has to have a cap. This has to have an ending. But you made a really good point. It's like, no, you got to like provide housing that's at a good price. It's a good place and hopefully a good location. Maybe there won't be a cap with that. Maybe you can keep building, and that's the analysis. It's like you can find something that just runs the numbers that make sense at the rental rate that'll always be rented versus like, let's build luxury real estate all over San Diego and hopefully we get, $5,000 for a 1-bedroom. It's like, it's a good point because I'm freaking out over here thinking, oh my God, all these people are building all these ADUs. There has to be some cap to this. There has to be some limit to this.
Yeah, and I think people go wrong in their projections. It's in the beginning when everything's imaginary, right? Everybody thinks that they can build it for less than the next guy. For some reason, they think they can design something better than the next guy. They think they can rent it for more than the next guy. And I think it's just having this larger disconnect between expectation and reality. And you know how the spreadsheets work when you're like, okay, well, it's going to be $300 a foot, not $200 a foot. Well, it works if we bump our rents from $2,400 to $2,750. And you're like, okay, well, the reality has to kind of dictate what we do in the field.
Yeah.
And there's a reason all this luxury real estate is being produced because we have to get top dollar rents for these things because we're paying for labor and lumber and materials in $24 and all the sticks and the bricks are more expensive than they'd ever been. And so are all the people because all the people need to go provide for their families and put gas in their car. And it's just inflation on a grand scale and it all trickles down to the end consumer. And I kind of believe there will be a point where they stop building.
Oh, 100%. The luxury stuff? Oh, yeah. Well, I think at least that.
Yeah, and I saw an interesting article or 2-page kind of summary, I'll send it to you, that was talking about whenever there's new luxury real estate that's developed, which is pretty much all there is, right? Yep. Except for, subsidized affordable housing, which is not a huge, there's way more luxury real estate that's built. But that shifts the whole aggregate downward because the old luxury real estate is now the second-rate stuff, and the old second-rate stuff is now like the working force housing stuff, and then the old working force housing becomes like the really cheap, like, ghetto or like, and it's a whole different cycle of kind of like tenants and demographic and location.
Yep.
And we need more housing, and I think in that way, I mean, it's political when it comes to thinking, well, when people's assumptions about how, like, what's going to fix this, right? So, like, the left would say, like, we need more affordable housing because these damn, developers are too greedy. They want to make too much money. And then the right would say, well, trickle-down economics, we need more housing to provide more affordable housing, right? So it's kind of, it's imaginative in that sense, and it's all based on projections. But to go back to your ADU thing, I'm just kind of surprised that you could build like a 2-story ADU in your backyard when you have like a neighbor there, a neighbor there, a neighbor there, a neighbor there, and like no alley access. Like that's kind of like crazy to me. Like I have a 2-story ADU in my backyard, but I also have alley access, and my neighbor has a 2-story structure, and then the other guy behind me runs an Airbnb, and the other lady behind me like blocked her own view with her trees. So, and the other guy next to me like puts his RV. So, I have my own justifications for like, is this appropriate?
Yeah.
And some people are just like, whatever, do whatever, whenever, and just slam the housing in. But if you have poor floor plans, poor lighting, like just a bunch of units, underparked, no outdoor space, 8-foot ceilings, like big ADA accessible doors that are like big obnoxious bathroom, you're not going to get as much rent, and you're going to have more turnover. And this is like, people are going to stop doing it.
Yep.
If you're going to build like a deck, right, you would hope that like below that deck is like a covered patio pergola, and like you're going to use both of those spaces. So by building this deck, you've kind of transformed, and now that the below the deck is like a carport. I think that we need more like great architects that understand value engineering and construct like the whole. It seems like everybody in this whole process understands a little bit about, like, they know a lot about their little thing. But then it takes people like you and me that have the ability to be a fly on the wall for a bunch of different, consultant meetings and learn a little bit about a lot, and say, like, we need to figure out how to incorporate this, and this, and go into this direction and deliver it at this price in this time.
Yes,
and like,
so
we're
true.
Turning the screws on everybody and getting in code enforcement cases because nobody likes change if it's not in the way they want it to change.
Yeah.
You get to hear in these meetings, like, where they're like hitting the wall.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't need to understand all these things about all this stuff, but you understand where the issue is, and then you kind of take that, like, you're going to hit this issue. Like, on this size lot doing this size project, you're going to hit this issue. Whether it's like with width of lot. Like, I've run into stuff where it's like, okay, a 50-foot wide lot that has 4-foot setback, that's 42 feet, right? And then if you're going to build a wall, that's like 6 inches minimum, so that's 41 feet. And then you have a 20-foot garage door, but if there's a 20-foot garage, you need 21 feet for the garage door. So 21 minus the 41 equals 20 feet, but you need 25 feet for backup. You're like, God damn it, we have to put steel and eliminate this wall and cantilever the whole building so that we get the other 5 feet that exists. So design is driven by these parameters, and if you don't understand the parameters, you're like not really qualified to dictate how things should go.
Yep.
That's this part I'm in my career of trying to figure out how can I understand all these parameters, and then not be better than anybody else, but like learn from everybody else's mistakes and learn, like, okay, what dictated that was going to happen, and how could you have baked the cake differently and avoided that? Or like a big thing is all these things being underparked. If you're in the transit priority area, you don't have to have, or the SDA, whatever it is now, you don't need to provide parking for ADU, but they're not going to pay a lot of rent and stay a long time if they don't have parking.
Exactly.
I want to build garages, man. I have this great idea to build like man caves. Yeah.
Tell me more about this. Tell me.
Well, I'm like kind of manifesting a man cave for myself. Like I have one in mind, and I just, something like 1,600 square feet with like 12-foot ceilings.
Okay.
Have some sort of like, garage that I could pull into / office / like gym / just like a good abundant open space. And then I got to figure out how I can make money, right? Because storage is an interesting thing. Like I've learned a big lesson recently.
What's a lesson that you've learned recently? Let's hear that.
Okay, so I thought it was like outdoor space, parking, and a good unit with like good layout and nice outdoor space. But another thing that tenants need, right, is storage, particularly dudes.
Okay.
Girls don't really need storage.
Okay.
Just because dudes are like, oh, okay, I got, on the whole, like, don't cancel me. On the whole, dudes have like, bikes and kayaks and tools and camping gear and like outrigger stuff for their truck or whatever.
Yep.
And it's like, so where am I going to put my stuff?
Yeah.
And we're converting all these garages into like ADUs, and we're not providing any new storage. I don't think it needs to be big, but I'm trying to figure out like a storage solution, like a 4x8 or something for everybody.
You're designing like good quality stuff like this. You're right. Like even in my house, like I don't have a shed yet, but I'm like, where are my tools and like my open house signs and like my truck bed that I got? Like, where am I going to put this shit? Like,
dude, you need stuff.
Yeah, you need a storage space. So I'm glad that That's a good lesson. Storage.
Yeah, people need storage, and you can sell it to them, and you could provide it. But it's this like this avatar of what like maybe like the mayor thinks like all these people are, which is young workforce housing that don't have a car, that want to live in a studio, that don't have stuff. Like, yeah, those people exist, but we can't build all new housing for only this demographic of people.
Yeah.
I think we're already kind of, the absorption rate of studios is already going down.
Yeah.
Because you got to get like crazy price per square foot. You know, here's a 300 square foot like shoebox or 250 square foot shoebox, and I need minimum $2,000, but they're going to try and get $2,500 for it. It's like, why don't I just rent a 3-bed, 2-bath for $5,000 with my buddy and have a 2-car garage?
Yeah, exactly.
And an office we could, share or something, or a guest room we could share.
Man.
Value is such an interesting thing to understand, like these people are not stupid. Tenants are not stupid.
Exactly. They're not.
They're no different than you and I.
Exactly. They're looking for a good place.
They don't own it.
They're looking for a good place. Yeah. And I don't know. It's sad because you're right. Like these $2,500, 300 square foot studios, it's like, man, like this isn't quality housing. This is kind of just forcing people in this little shoebox.
Well, and then the other thing that, yes, you could put all these units in, right? But if it's a studio and it has literally, you've seen a bunch of these buildings, like windows on one side, right? There's a door on one side. There's a brick wall.
It's a hallway.
It's a hallway.
Unit. Yeah.
And it's like tiny, and it has a window on one side, and it kind of sucks. And that's design that actually works, right? Like they have to do it on a budget and with those parameters and stuff that many units into it to make it work. And there's people that are renting them. I'm not trying to like hate on that as a whole, but I think there's people that talk about like build the middle. I don't even really know what that means, but I think it's what we're talking about. Build the middle income housing that people with bikes and stuff like need to have. Like they need to have somewhere where their kid can go like run around. We need more like public parks, and maybe we need to curate our parks more or do something, like there's a terrible park on Oregon Street and in North Park that's just like full of the homeless and like drug addicts right now. And it's like, maybe we need to make that thing smaller or something, or break it up and like do something to it. Used to be like this big water reservoir. You know where the water tower is? Yeah. Like that used to be this like 10-foot walled in like water reservoir.
Oh, wow.
And then it was turned into like a park. So it's, there's all these like urban planning, like mess ups from years ago that have kind of become de facto like make a park or make an indoor soccer team. It's like, what? So I don't know. I think we know what needs to happen, and we have this kind of we have a unique perspective to see like bird's eye view of like that's working, that's not working. And then you have people that are like small time that just build a little casita in their backyard and like crush it. Yeah, and like just, they're like,
they're happy with that.
They're like, that's all we would afford. And they make a little yard, and it's like, wow, cool. Someone from the outside just did it way better because it wasn't driven by profits, but it's okay if it's driven by profits, but maybe trying to figure out what's the best. It's not just, straight line, right? There's so many different little parameters we can tweak to make a profitable and good project. And just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Dude, we could talk about this all day.
I know.
We could really talk about this all day.
That's a good one.
I'm going to wrap us up here, but we really could talk about this all day. I really appreciate you coming on, just chit-chatting, sharing your words of wisdom, because we got some good nuggets out of this. And I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's it. Hey there. If you like this episode or want a real estate connection in San Diego, find me on Instagram and subscribe so you don't miss any of these fun episodes. See you next time.